Hi, my name is Greg Wallace, and I'm the Director of Partnerships and Research at the FreeBSD Foundation. And I am really excited to just take a few minutes to tell you a little bit about the FreeBSD Foundation, the FreeBSD project, and sort of some of the things that the foundation is focused on. And this is really kind of a general introduction for anybody who maybe has heard of FreeBSD but doesn't know that much about it, or maybe you don't know anything about it at all. So let me go ahead and share my screen. The title for my presentation is FreeBSD, a digital cornerstone. So I'm going to talk through sort of why it is a digital cornerstone, how it has become that, and how you can get involved. So FreeBSD has been around for 30 years now, and in that time span, we've really been making computing better for everybody. And we've been doing that through open source, obviously, so the code is freely available through a permissive license, but also open governance. And I'll talk about what that means in a little bit. Security by design has been a focus for FreeBSD and the FreeBSD community for 30 years. And that has become even more important today with just the threat actors becoming far more sophisticated, the number of threats increasing, and the scrutiny from governments becoming more intense. I talked about it. We've got a permissive license. So that means you can use FreeBSD, you can customize FreeBSD, you can use FreeBSD as part of a commercial product, you can integrate it with proprietary code, and there are no strings attached. And so that's really important to a lot of companies. FreeBSD is very, very efficient, which makes it very performant for any number of workloads and using a big diversity of hardware, from the most advanced all the way down to sort of very common, even last generation stuff. And then stability and predictability across releases. So FreeBSD has been committed to long-term support forever. Not that we support the tech forever, but ever since the inception of the project, we've been committed to providing long-term support because we recognize how much that matters to companies that have to support customers for a long period of time. And you don't want to be introducing new changes constantly. And so that's why these are just a few of the companies that base products on FreeBSD, that support FreeBSD, that invest in FreeBSD, both in the development community as well as through the foundation. And we would love to talk to you about how you can get involved with FreeBSD as well if you're a company. So more about that later. So 30 years is a long time. And when you look back over that 30-year period, FreeBSD has been responsible. The community that develops FreeBSD and the technology itself have been responsible for just an enormous number of firsts that every single computer user benefits from. I talked a little bit about open governance. So that means that the core team, in our case, in FreeBSD, the group of elected technical leaders is called the core team. And they're elected from the group of people that develop, right? And you really expect that no matter which open source community you go into these days, you're going to expect that the people setting the strategic direction for the technology are elected by the development community, right? And that's one of the reasons why FreeBSD has stayed at the forefront for 30 years, because that group of people who is elected is very in touch with the development community. First, container virtualization with jails. First, to introduce mandatory access control. This is a fundamental security framework that came from the FreeBSD community first and is now ubiquitous across the industry. The first non-Solaris integration of Open ZFS or ZFS, and then it became OpenZFS, the very high performant file system. The first operating system running Cherry. I'm going to talk a little bit about that more. The first to 800 gigabits per second on standard TLS encrypted throughput on standard off-the-shelf server hardware. And now we have another one that I need to get a bigger slide. We are the first to have support for up to 1024 cores in both AMD 64 and ARM 64 hardware. So continuing to push the boundaries of what's possible so that people can just do whatever they need to do with their computers. So when people ask, like, what is FreeBSD? It's really three things, at least three things. First, obviously, it's a open source Unix-like operating system. We strive to be standards compliant, and it derived directly back to the Unix developed at University of California, Berkeley. So it's similar to Linux, but it is not associated with Linux. It's not derived from Linux. It's a separate kernel. FreeBSD, though, is also very much the community that develops it. So hundreds of committers, thousands of contributors all around the world. And this community is committed to making FreeBSD as good as it can be, and doing that through mentorship, a focus on excellence, and growth. So growing the community is critical, and I'll talk about that a little more later. And then lastly, FreeBSD is backed by a 501c3 public charity non-for-profit. That's where I work. We're small, and we really are only here to do one thing: fill in the gaps around the development community, make sure that FreeBSD is keeping up with all the latest hardware and all the latest requirements, focus on things like CI, all the kind of general things that no matter what kind of software you're developing, whether it's proprietary or open source, you have to have that kind of infrastructure in place to support it, and that's what we're here to do. So let's dive into some of these different areas. So let's talk about just some examples of some of the innovation that's happening within FreeBSD. So from a technology standpoint, Cherry, which stands for Compatibility Hardware Enhanced RISC Instructions, is a brand new hybrid hardware software approach to protecting users against memory safety vulnerabilities. And you can't go a day without hearing about a buffer overflow or some new exploit that takes advantage of this. It's a real problem. There are millions and millions of applications out there written in C and C++, memory unsafe languages, that put users at risk. So and these applications represent billions of lines of code. So Rust has emerged as a very popular way to protect against memory unsafe vulnerabilities. It's a new systems level language, and it's really wonderful, but it's probably not practical. And I think that's probably an understatement. I'd say it's not practical to rewrite all of the millions of applications out there in the wild into Rust. So excellent for new applications, a handful of high priority existing applications, yes, rewrite them into Rust, but what about all the other ones? How do we protect users against them? That's where Cherry comes in. With minimal modifications, you can port an existing application written in C or C++ to run on Cherry, and instantly your users are protected against 70% of those memory safety vulnerabilities. So it's a really exciting new technology coming out of the FreeBSD community that you're going to be able to develop on very soon. The boards that have this new ISA are becoming available, and it's just going to accelerate from here. I like to think that the community, so I'm switching gears now, going from technology to the FreeBSD community. I believe that the community is both the journey and the destination. So what do I mean by that? Well, a friend of mine, Steve Garcia, has partnered with a colleague of his and written this really great book, which I'm reading right now. And in it, they talk about the importance of having collaborative relationships that span across boundaries. And those boundaries can be within a company, across teams, they can be across companies, they can be across geographies, whatever they are. But those kinds of collaborative relationships really help to make sure that as individuals and as organizations, we are as creative and adaptable as we can be. And so you look at an open source community like FreeBSD, where it is comprised of exactly these kinds of relationships. So being involved in the FreeBSD community, and the FreeBSD community itself has benefits to individuals and then to the consumers or the users of FreeBSD, because the community that's building the code is more creative and more adaptable to keep up with this just radical pace of innovation that's happening in the technology industry today. So the community is the journey and it's the destination. And then a friend of mine a long time ago said this to me. He said, it's not the source of the code. It's not the, excuse me, it's not the source code. It's the source of the code, right? And I firmly believe that, right? That what matters is who's developing the code. Clearly, you want that code to be good, but the way to make sure that that code is great is by looking at who develops it. And I talked about some of the companies that are involved in FreeBSD, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. And I believe that's some of the best source out there today, and I think you'll agree with me. The images that you see on the left are from our recent FreeBSD vendor summit, which was held at NetApp's gorgeous office in San Jose, California, right there on Santana Row. And there were panelists comprised of folks from NetApp, from ARM, from NetScaler, Clara. You see my colleague Ed Mast talking about the FreeBSD Foundation's technology and development contributions to FreeBSD. There were lots of opportunities to network and connect. It was a really terrific event. And then on the right-hand side, several of those people have participated with the FreeBSD project on Google Summer of Code projects. Others are some freelancers and contractors that we work with. We have a really proud tradition of working with Google Summer of Code. I think we're one of the longest standing open source projects in terms of continuous participation. And several of those developers who work on projects with the FreeBSD community as part of the Google Summer of Code stick around and maintain their commitment and involvement with the community. So it's a really great way. And we invest a lot of time to make sure that people have a really good experience working with FreeBSD through those projects and any other project that we work on. So we really encourage you to take a look and see how you can get involved. Finally, there is the foundation. So when I talked about what is FreeBSD, it's the technology, it's an open source project, an open source operating system, it's the community, and then it's the foundation. So the foundation supports the development, security, operations, and successful use of FreeBSD. We're deeply connected with the community, and 100% of our operations are supported by donations. So if you've donated, thank you. If you haven't, please consider doing so. As a 501c3, we're only here for one thing, which is to support FreeBSD, to make FreeBSD the best operating system that it can be. We certainly accept donations from corporations, but we are not a member organization. We're not here to serve the open source interests of our members. Rather, we're here just to make FreeBSD as good as it can be. So how do we do that? Well, this slide will show you. On the left, it's the number of foundation-sponsored commits across docs, ports, and source. We've actually had a little bit of a sprint lately where we've been putting some time into docs, but most of our efforts have been into source and ports. And then on the right, where you look at sponsored source commits. So there's a whole lot of commits to source that are not sponsored. And so, it's kind of hard to sort of parse out, where those are coming from. But when it's a sponsored commit, you know where it comes from. And the foundation is responsible for more sponsored commits to source than any other organization. And then you see kind of how those break down. So again, when I say it's about the source of the code, this is great, right? This is really awesome source, and I'm proud to be associated with it. And it's why FreeBSD has been such a great operating system for so long. So where are we focused going forward? Really three things. Improve the ease of adoption for commercial users, improving the ease of adoption for new users and developers. So that means kind of continuing to work on things like Wi-Fi, continuing to work on sort of out-of-the-box desktop and laptop capability. And then lastly, increasing awareness and visibility. So making sure that as many people as can benefit from FreeBSD are aware of it and have the sort of easy on-ramp process that everybody needs these days to be successful with any new technology. Not that FreeBSD is new, but it may be new to you as a newer user. And these are all the things that the foundation does to support FreeBSD. So I talked about a little bit the development and project management. Ed Mast, who is the Senior Director of Technology at the foundation, is also the Deputy Security Officer in the community-run security team. We work on quality assurance, CI/CD. We support either the seeking and receiving donations of hardware, or where there are needs, acquiring hardware and providing that to the project for build servers and all of that. And then sort of along the bottom row, the onboarding, advocacy, and training. That's really to make sure that users are successful with FreeBSD. And then finally, we serve as the legal entity for signing contracts, protecting the trademarks and that sort of thing. So now I'm going to kind of wrap things up very quickly with a handful of ways that you can get involved. So if you're a technology professional, FreeBSD offers you a wonderful opportunity, a supporting community to develop your skills, build your network, and really make your mark in technology that powers a large percentage of the digital infrastructure that the entire world relies upon every single day. And really, there are three ways to get started. First is learn. There are an endless number of engineering resources available, so that QR code is a great place to get started. Connect. Get to know people in the community. We run all kinds of online events. We run all kinds of in-person events. We participate in events. We support people who want to set up sort of birds of a feather or special interest groups. If you are going to be at a conference and want to represent FreeBSD, you want to stand up a FreeBSD group at a university or college, check out that QR code. That'll help you get started. And then get involved developing. And there's all kinds of ways. You can get involved as a project manager. You can get involved as an ambassador. You can get involved helping out with docs. You can get involved reviewing patches. There's just all kinds of ways. And we want to sort of provide you with an easy on-ramp process that has no limits, right? You can go as far as you want to go. So that QR code there will help you with your contribution journey. And then how about for companies? So I talked about a lot of this already, but just very quickly, why companies use FreeBSD. We hear a lot of these things all the time, and the exact reasons will vary from company to company, but the things that we hear over and over are the business-friendly, simple license, the just amazing performance that you get with FreeBSD, and we're going to have some more on that coming fairly soon. The reliability and consistency is really legendary. Security by design, talked about that. Stability within releases. It's easy to upstream patches. We have a democratic, flat community, so you're not going to necessarily run into the same bottlenecks that you might in some other communities. And we're always trying to work to make that easier. So this is something that we are very, very invested in making sure is a good experience for people who have patches they want to contribute, because that's the lifeblood of open source. FreeBSD is also a full, complete operating system that's cohesive, kernel, userland, and ports and packages. But as a company, you can kind of take your pick. You can use part and not use other parts. And because of the permissive license, there's no obstacle to you doing that. It's relatively easy to customize. It's incredibly well documented. So we encourage that. And we have a lot of companies using FreeBSD that do that. And FreeBSD has always been sort of focused on reducing bloat wherever we can. So we do find that relative to a lot of other operating systems, we have a pretty small footprint. So, uh, so how to get involved? You're a company. So the first thing you can do is if you're using FreeBSD today and you want to tell your story, get the word out to the large global FreeBSD community of developers, people who are trained on FreeBSD, who can work as sysadmins, as sort of platform architects, as engineers. Let us know. We would love to work with you to tell your story. So that QR code there will get you started there. Collaborate. So connect with others. This community is really great and supportive and wants to help you be successful. You will find probably that a lot of other companies have encountered the challenges that you're facing. Maybe that's with, how to upstream your patches. Maybe that's, best practices for consuming and staying close to the head release of FreeBSD so you can incorporate security patches easily, right? Whatever it is, chances are somebody else in the community has faced that and will have suggestions for you. So definitely get involved if you're not today. And then lastly, upstream. And this can be hard sometimes, and we recognize that. So the foundation is here to help you with this. There are organizations in the community. This QR code here is going to take you to a really great talk that Alan Jude from Clara gave at the FreeBSD Summit recently about sort of how to be an upstream first company. So that's also a really great resource. Because at the end of the day, it's the source of the code that matters. And we know that you have some really intelligent people, smart people, innovative people working at your company. And if you're doing great things with FreeBSD, we really want to make sure that that gets upstreamed as much as possible. If you want to support the FreeBSD Foundation as a vendor, you can do that at any level at all. We do offer some benefits that are really cost-based. That is to say, the FreeBSD Foundation isn't making money on any of these tiers. What we've tried to do is structure these so that we can offer valuable support to companies that support the foundation at certain levels. So the silver level is variable by headcount. It starts at $10,000, so it's pretty inexpensive. And you get all of the things that you see there in green. The next level up is gold. There, we're adding strategy sessions. So, sitting down with the technology team to kind of map out how the foundation can support you, how the foundation can connect you with others in the community that can support you to make sure that you're getting the most out of FreeBSD. And then Platinum, the real big difference there is you get a dedicated rep at the foundation to really sort of serve as your liaison. And you can, start at one level 1 year, move to a different level. Often we find that, companies will engage and sort of really have a sort of high intensity requirements for a while. And then once they get into a rhythm and they've got a couple committers on staff who are really integrated with the upstream community, they can back off. So that's kind of our corporate partnership tiers that, again, are really designed to add value to you, to help make sure that you get credit in the FreeBSD community for your support, for your use of FreeBSD. And that we provide the engineering support that you need as well. And so that's everything I wanted to cover. I hope that this was helpful for you. The last QR code is my Calendly. So if you have questions, any of this doesn't make sense, or you want to drill down into any of the details, just book a meeting with me. I would love to talk to you, and I can loop in any of my colleagues as appropriate.